Hey guys, here we go. Hey, what's up, YouTube fam? It's Dana Shea, host of Real Relationship Talk, marriage and relationship coach. Super excited to be back for this part 2 of 10 vital questions you should ask before you get married. So, guys, I uploaded the first part yesterday. And I just want to, first of all, before we even get into today's content, I just want to say to you all, I appreciate you. I know some of you guys have been subscribed to my channel for years, and I kind of took a little break from YouTube and then came back. And so for those of you guys who are re-engaging with this content, I am super grateful. And if you're a new subscriber, welcome. Welcome to Real Relationship Talk. And we talk about everything relationships. I do a lot of talking about marriage, but I am really excited because in 2 weeks, we are launching a whole new series for singles. So if you are about to be married, or if you're single and you want to be married, or you're divorced and you're reconsidering marriage, this is going to be the series for you. So let's go ahead and jump into the meat of today's episode. So yesterday we talked about 5 questions. So the whole series is called 10 questions that you want to ask before you get married. Yesterday we talked about the first 5. And so today we are going to talk about the second 5. All right, so let's jump right in. The next question that you want to ask after or before you get married is, how important is religion or faith to you? Now, this is a question that, like, especially in our current generation, our current society, where people are like, oh, you can believe whatever you want to believe, it doesn't matter. And that's true. I believe in the freedom of religion, but I also believe that when you get married, there's a Bible verse that talks about not being unequally yoked. And what that means is that if you have one person who is a Christian and another person who is a Buddhist, and you get married, then what's going to happen is you're going to have some conflicts about values and about especially how you raise your children and what's important and what drives your life. And so you just want to make sure that your religions or your faiths are able to coexist with one another. And I believe if you're a Christian, the Bible is pretty clear, very clear actually, about not being unequally yoked, not marrying someone who's not a believer. And listen, this is a whole huge conversation. We could do a whole series of videos on why that is important. So if you want more of that content, let me know in the comments below, and I'd be happy to do a video about that. All right, so the next question is, do you want kids? I mean, that's kind of like, we need to be talking about that. Obviously, if you get married to someone who doesn't want kids and then you pop up pregnant, or you want kids and your wife doesn't, that's going to be a huge issue. And we see a lot of this like in celebrity marriages, where you'll have these like super accomplished, successful women who don't want to be moms, and their celebrity husband wants to be a dad, and then they split, right? And maybe you know of a couple in your own life, or maybe it's happened to you in a previous relationship where you wanted kids or you didn't want kids. And so that's just a conversation that you really need to have. And I would even go even further than that and say, as you're talking about the whole kid thing, you want to also talk about, like, how are we going to discipline these said children? Because if you are a person who believes in spanking and your soon to be spouse doesn't, well, you're going to have some challenges there. Or if you are more like, let's talk to our kids about everything. Let's let our kids kind of be free to make their own choices. And then you marry somebody who's like real traditional and who are like, children don't need to have choices. They need to just do what we say. That's going to create some conflict as well. And as a matter of fact, in the couples that I do with premarital coaching, we spend a whole entire session on this subject alone, because I'm telling y'all, I have seen so many couples come back after the fact and their marriage is in shambles, not because someone's cheated or someone's done something else, but just because they cannot agree on the whole kid thing. So take your time and really have conversations about how are we going to raise these children. All right, the third question is, who will handle the finances? Now, this is something that I think a lot of people just kind of overlook, especially if you've been single for a long time. Like, if you've been working and you've been making your own money and you have your own house and your own everything, that's going to be a challenge, obviously, coming together with somebody else, but you need to have that clear conversation. So I remember when Sean and I got married, and at that time, I was handling all the finances, right? And then he would be like, okay, I'm going to take over the finances. And so he would kind of take them over, but I was still kind of doing stuff. And we were like this. We were like all on top of each other, and not in a good way. We were crossing each other, and he was paying stuff, I was paying stuff, or he was supposed to pay something and I thought he was supposed to, and it was just a whole bunch of confusion. So my advice to you is to have one person handle the finances if your finances are joined. Now, obviously, you don't have to join your finances. There are couples who they keep their own separate bank accounts and that works for them. Knock yourself out, whatever works for you. But if you're going to join your finances, I hugely recommend, is that a word, hugely? I feel like that's like a Donald Trump saying hugely. But anyway, I recommend that you join your finance, or that you not that you join your finances, but that you have somebody who's like the delegated person who's going to handle that. And it doesn't have to be the husband. It needs to be the person who's best with money. Okay. But talk about that and make that decision even before you get married. That's going to tell you a lot. First of all, I remember my mom was telling me, she was like, back in the day, they used to do STD checks and, people used to do credit checks. And I know that, like, I have a couple girlfriends today who do a credit check on their boyfriends because they're like, before we even get any further, you can't come up in here with no 500 and something score. So I just knock yourself out if that's what you wanted, if you want to take it to that level. All right. Our next question is, this makes me laugh. How often do you need to have sex? Y'all, right now I'm in a series on the podcast called All About Sex. And this question is like, nobody asks this question, right? Like, how often do you want to have sex? And then people get married and they're like, oh my God, my husband wants to have sex every single day. Or my wife thinks we should only have sex once every 3 months, or vice versa. Because there's some women who are a little friskier than the men. That's great, right? But talk about that. Like, do you need to have sex every day? Is that your expectation? Talk about past sexual trauma. Now, obviously, I'm talking about couples who are about to get married. So these are not conversations that you're going to be having on like date 3. Okay. But if you are going to be joining your life for the rest of your life with someone, you need to know this information. So make sure that you ask that. And I don't know, it doesn't matter, whatever makes you happy. Listen, that is not the truth. People know what they want. And so if your husband, soon to be wife doesn't know, then say, well, let's talk about this because we need some expectations to be cleared up. I've said this in other videos, but a lot of times, y'all, the problems that we have in marriage are not necessarily even problems. They're just unmet expectations. And so you go into this marriage having this whole expectation of something that's not met. And so you want to be able to avoid that. All right. Our final question, and this is like on the equivalent side of like, do you want me to sign a prenup? But the question is, what are your beliefs about divorce? Boom. Again, I don't think anybody's asking that question. Listen, if you marry somebody and they're like, I think divorce isn't that great of an idea, but if sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Well, if you're somebody who's like, I'm going to make this marriage work, come hell or high water, I'm in it to win it, you're going to have a problem because that person is already telling you divorce is on the table. And if I need to use it, I'm going to use it. So you definitely want to know where your partner stands. You'll notice, guys, that in this part 2 or even part 1, I'm not giving you what my advice is on which way your soon-to-be spouse should answer these questions, because that's not the point. The point is that you know where your soon-to-be spouse stands. Do not get married with these rose-colored glasses on, and then you're standing at an altar all goo-goo-eyed, and then 3 months later, you're like, what the heck have I done? I was about to say something else. What the heck have I done? Because you're going to be sadly disappointed. And all of that could have been avoided if you would have taken the time on the front end to talk about these really critical questions. So maybe you've got some questions that you would recommend. Maybe you're married and you're watching this video, or maybe you're no longer married and you're like, I wish I would have asked these questions. So if you have anything to add to this conversation, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. So thanks so much for watching today, you guys. New episode on the podcast just launched today called Making Love Outside the Bedroom. Be sure to head over to realrelationshiptalk.com and listen to it. And if you are not yet subscribed to this channel, go ahead and subscribe and comment below, like I said, on any other questions that you think people should be asking before they get married. All right, guys, that's it for today's episode or video. So you should say an episode. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.